go. And you now join us live for our build-up for coverage of the Tissot sprint here in round 19 of 22 in this MotoGP World Championship, which has already gone, of course, in favour of Marc Marquez. It has been already a scintillating sprint Saturday. What a Q2 session we had this morning, where it was drama from the first lap to the last lap. Out of all of that chaos in the 15-minute Q2 session, under what are glorious blue skies, it was Fabio Quartararo, the flying Frenchman, that led the way with a record-breaking lap of 1:26.465. First time the Yamaha's taken pole position here in Phillip Island since Maverick Vinales in 2019. Joined on the front row by Marco Bezzecchi, who was fastest on Friday for the third Grand Prix in a row. And what about this for a story? Jack Miller coming through Q1, the home crowd hero who started this Australian Grand Prix weekend fastest yesterday on Friday morning. Second to Aldeguer he was in Q1. And Jack Miller on an unforgettable Saturday so far for Yamaha. First time two Yamaha start together on a front row since Assen, the Dutch TT, back in 2021. On that occasion, it was Fabio Quartararo and Maverick Vinales. Vinales, one of three high-profile stars, sadly missing from this weekend's Australian Grand Prix. The three of them will also be missing from next weekend's action to back. Marc Marquez, of course, Jorge Martin and Maverick Vinales sidelined through injury. Mark Burton Lewis is going to be in the commentary box. Jack Appleyard down in pit lane on a sprint Saturday, which started under very miserable and grey and wet skies, but thankfully for this upcoming 13-lap sprint, which we lights out in about 25 minutes, we are soaking up some serious sunshine. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon here in this part of South Australia. Barely a cloud in the sky as we look out of our commentary box position. Perch just on the edge of Miller Corner at turn 4, is where the Miller army of fans will be gathered for the sprint and the Grand Prix here tomorrow. And they will see Miller on the front row of the grid for the first time in 45 races. Prix 2023 was the Aussie's last front row start. The absence of big names like Marquez, Martin and Vinales, well, it really has thrown this Australian Grand Prix wide open. A second row which features Raul Fernandez, Pedro Acosta and Alex Marquez. Lewis, it's been wet, it's been certainly wild for most of this weekend so far. A brilliant front row, particularly if you're a fan of Yamaha, Quartararo and Jack Miller either side of Marco Bezzecchi. Pretty tough the second row as well. This is a very hard sprint and Grand Prix to call.
Wet and wild, but wonderful to watch so far. The fastest ever MotoGP lap of Phillip Island earlier on today. An incredible qualifying session, which certainly had plenty of stories to tell, including some penalties to bring us to speed with as we go through our build-up to the sprint, which will take effect tomorrow. Of course, Marco Bezzecchi has a double lap penalty term tomorrow. The fact that that applies tomorrow, not today, sure means that today is Bez's big opportunity to claim victory, but you will have to overcome the flying Frenchman Fabio Quartararo, as pumped up as I've seen him for quite some time, to take pole position. He's had to wait a while since Assen, Prix on the break for his last pole position, but at 26.465 for Quartararo puts him at the front of the grid, and he has got a genuine sprint victory chance here.
Fifth pole position of 2025 for Quartararo, the 26-year-old Frenchman, 21st MotoGP pole position. He has never been victorious in the new sprint era. Just the 3 sprint podiums to his name for Fabio Quartararo in our previous 57. First time no Ducati on the front row of the grid since the Grand Prix Europe of Valencia back in 2020. That was a run extending 98 races. Well, he's called Thriller Miller, and Miller has thrilled the home fans, hasn't he, so far here this weekend. First front row start, as mentioned, in 45 Grand Prix for the Aussie. The first Australian in front of his home crowd to fire away from the front row of the grid since one of the best to ever do around here, Aussie legend Casey Stoner, all the way back in 2012.
Splitting the Yamahas on the front row of the grid is Marco Bezzecchi, who looks the overwhelming favourite for pole coming into qualifying. It was a bit of a fraught Q2 for Bez, it has to be said. Caught some yellow flags for the first of 2 Alex Marquez crashes in qualifying 2, and then was pulled by all people, one of his best friends, Pecco Bagnaia, who has been given a free-flow grip penalty for that, but that doesn't take effect until tomorrow, so he will start from 11th on the grid for the 63. Bezzecchi starts from second, and there is no doubting that he and that Aprilia have got serious front-running pace.
Marco Bezzecchi was red hot, wasn't he, yesterday? Fastest on Friday, just as he was recently in Japan and over in Indonesia. Bagnaia was not the only rider in a bit of hot water this morning. He pulled Marco Bezzecchi on that run down in turn 4 in Q2, and also a 3-place grid penalty for the Grand Prix tomorrow for South African Brad Binder. He pulled quite badly through turn 7 late on in that Q2 session. Johan Zarco, who was very, very frustrated, and with good reason. Zarco, he was threatening a place, wasn't he, in that second qualifying session. That was the moment. Turn 7, you could just see there that blur, that flash of LCR Honda sweeping on through when Zarco was flying. And that's going to cost Brad Binder 3 places on the grid. He will drop down to the head of row 6 tomorrow, 16th place.
Immediately that he's made a mistake there, immediately raised his left hand in apology to Johan Zarco, but that's not going to do anything to lighten the mood of Johan, who had already got a bit hot under the collar earlier on this morning in free practice 2 after he crashed at turn 10. Zarco 15th on the grid, one of just 2 previous Australian Grand Prix winners on the grid this afternoon.
Last time out, Mazika just the 7th rider, some milestone this for the 35-year-old Frenchman, just the 7th rider in Grand Prix history to make 300 starts, some career. Zarco has had, of course, double MotoGP World Champion, slow online during qualifying for suspension of the season, then for Italian Pecco Bagnaia. 4th time now, last 6 Grand Prix Bagnaia to find himself starting outside of the top 10. He incurred the wrath of his good buddy Marco Bezzecchi breaking into the middle corner. Bezzecchi was really, really angry with this one, with some justification. He almost then clipped into a fellow VR46 Academy stablemate for the Carini, who were trying to keep himself out of bother on the edge of the long lap penalty loop. There's losing his cool. We've not said that too often so far this weekend in Phillip Island. Those two are known trash talkers between each other, and I think it's fair to say that during the lunch break here, it was Bagnaia on the receiving end of some men trash talking. Yeah, Bezzecchi rightfully a little bit missed with that one.
Clear with the surprise reaction of Bagnaia when he saw the flash of Aprilia coming up to this side. Bagnaia didn't realise that Ben was there, but after a defence, former 2-time MotoGP World Champion, who is not going in alone for the Vantage Ducati team here this weekend. Of course, Michele Pirro is replacing Marc Marquez, but all of the hopes of any kind of success this weekend for the Ducati factory team were on Bagnaia. Those hopes are surely remote, even today from 11, but certainly tomorrow when he starts from 14.
Just saw there the number 54 of the racing Ducati of Aldeguer leading pit lane. It was no fairy tale continuation of his excellent qualifying record here in Phillip Island this morning. He's had 3 Moto2 starts here at this magnificent venue, and he's been on pole position in the lots. He didn't leave Jack Miller in that epic battle in Q1. 7th on the grid, so goes Aldeguer, who of course tomorrow has an opportunity to become the first rookie in 12 long years of Marc Marquez, back-to-back victories all the way back in 2013. Watchalong and Bezzecchi side by side as they start this side lap here in Phillip Island. Surely they're going to be side by side in the early part of this sprint. Those two big favourites to lock horns together in this 13-lap battle coming up in just under 20 minutes time.
Of course, the big story in the Indonesia weekend were Benz's starts. They were not great, either of them, for 2 very different reasons. Had a clutch issue getting himself up the line in the sprint, which to be fair made the sprint quite a spectacle as he rampaged back through the field to catch Aldeguer for victory on the final lap. And then in the Grand Prix itself, he was late to the grid, didn't get all his pre-flight checks sorted out before he saw the start line ready to go out in front of his face, and was a little late reacting to the red lines going out. Dropped himself back down the order, and of course that triggered the train reaction that led to the collision with Marc Marquez. So it's so important, perhaps more important tomorrow given his penalty, but important today for Ben to get that Aprilia off the line.
Been a superstar so far on this sprint Saturday. Hans Quartararo, he was 3rd fastest this morning in the half-hour MotoGP session. Jack Miller then, well, this is certainly new territory as far as he's concerned on the Yamaha YZR M1. He's never been on the front row on the Yamaha. Casey Stoner, of course, I mentioned the last Australian that started his home Grand Prix from the front row. First time that happened in 2012. now then. Trackhouse and Pruglia are having a great spell, aren't they, at the moment? Ralph Fernandez clearly in the best form of his MotoGP career right now. A sprint podium last time out off the front row. Mandalika, he's firmly in the hunt again here today, going for the head of the second row in fourth spot. Back-to-back sprint podiums, well, why not? Let's get the thoughts of Trackhouse, Boss, Davide Pruglia, who joined Jack.
Yeah, why not indeed? You can tell that Raul is brimming with confidence at the moment. Another great opportunity ahead, Davide.
Yeah, looks like a good weekend. Raul has been fast since the beginning, since yesterday morning, and good pace, good lap time. So yeah, of course we're happy. And let's see, we have a couple of opportunities. Hopefully we race tomorrow also. And let's try. Maybe now, I hope after Indonesia with more, let's say, try to get a little bit more relaxed on fighting at the front. But let's see. I mean, you know, the race is always unpredictable, but here we are, very close to the first row, second row, and you can try to play your card.
Absolutely. Good luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks as always to Trackhouse boss, Davide Pruglia. Let's see if Ralph Fernandez can play his card. Has he got an ace up his sleeve, potentially for another sprint podium? An excellent second yesterday. It was an outstanding Friday here in Phillip Island, and a fully 1-2. Raul finishing pretty close behind Marco Bezzecchi. What lies in store then for the Italian? 14th on the grid for tomorrow's Australian Grand Prix. Bit of a fist bump there for Fabio Quattararo, 9th front row start incoming for the Frenchman. In terms of Grand Prix of late, the Quattararo has scored points in the last 10. 8 of those have been top 10, but the top 6 in the circuit for the last 3. That's the circuit to Barcelona and Catalunya. Well, that gives you a clear idea, doesn't it, just how close we are to this beautiful rugged coastline here in Phillip Island. About 120 kilometres south of Melbourne, 90 minutes or so from downtown Melbourne. And in this weather, when it's glorious sunshine like this, there is no better place for Grand Prix motorcycle racing on planet Earth than Phillip Island. Alex Marquez had an eventful Q2, 2 crashes in that second qualifying session. Still though finds himself in 6th place on the grid ahead of Minalliga. We'll go back down to Jack very quickly shortly. We'll just run quickly through the grid.
Quattararo, Bezzecchi, Miller is your front row. Medium front for Quattararo, hard front for Benz and Miller. On the second row, difficult to read there, but I can confirm it's Fernandez Acosta and Alex Marquez invited to Q1 crashes. Minalliga 7th from Paul Spargo and Luca Marini. Gian Antonio Bagnaia and Rins is your 4th row. The graphics will catch up shortly, so I'll run you through it. Binder, Mir and Zarco on the 5th row. All penalties on the grid take effect tomorrow, so it's Oliveira, Morbidelli and Gura, Savadori, Bastianini, Chantra, and completing the grid is between Gura.
So Alex Marquez looking to cement or secure second place in the World Championship, 6th on the grid. Minalliga, Mandalika winner is 7th. Let's go in here to the thoughts of the boss, McKaylee. Thanks for your patience, guys.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. McKaylee, huge crash for Alex this morning, the first trip. How is it?
It's okay, 100%. That's not the qualify we would like to do it, but so the first thing is that Alex is okay. The other thing that at the end is not too bad start from the second row, so we will try to manage a good start and try to recover some position in the few pit laps.
I think you had high hopes for me this weekend. Aside from what happened in Mandalika, he's got great form, he's looked in place, but it's been a complicated weekend so far. Did he manage to turn a corner this morning?
No, I think that the speed is there, but we struggle a bit to put all together. This is crucial in the MotoGP category, but I hope that we can make a good sprint today, hopefully in the top 5.
Good luck, thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to McKaylee. Yeah, there was a sense around Alex Marquez's side of that Italian garage that he got out of jail a little bit this morning. A couple of crashes. Jack mentioned a real fast one going into the Nürburgring tips off as well at turn 4. So to get away with 2 crashes, still find himself qualifying inside the top 6. Could be a lot worse as far as the 29-year-old Spaniard is concerned. Escorted then by his wife Ruby. It is Jack Miller on the front row of the grid. First Aussie that's been in this position here in Phillip Island in MotoGP since Barcelona, all the way back in 2012. Jack Miller, like Fabio Quartararo, his fellow Yamaha star, never victorious previously in a sprint. 3 sprint rostrums for Quartararo, just a 2 for Miller. Here's at last, of course, when he was on the KTM factory RC16 at the Saxon Ring in 2023.
I think he's the first rider ever to lead a sprint, wasn't he, Miller? And led the first lap of the first sprint back in Portimao a couple of years ago when he was on a KTM, which is now being ridden by Pedro Acosta. And he's got a real chance too. That's what makes this sprint so exciting. There are so many possible podium contenders in this. And Pedro Acosta certainly falls into that category, getting himself up onto the second row in 5th place. The leading KTM on the grid, 1 row ahead of Super Summer Tech 3, Paul Espargaro.
Well, we always knew that Marc Marquez was going to be a massive miss as far as the Ducati were concerned. How much of a miss? Well, it's the first time, as we mentioned, no Ducati on the front row of the grid since the European Grand Prix of Valencia in 2020. Front rows on another occasion did feature Paul Espargaro alongside the 2 Suzukis of Joan Mir and Alex Rins. It's the first time that no Ducati has qualified inside the top 5 since the Japanese Grand Prix, but taking 6 years ago when the top 5 was Marc Marquez on Honda. Quartararo was part of that top 5 on a Yamaha. Frankie Ball was only on the Yamaha, Mario Vignon on the Yamaha, and Cal Crutchlow on a Honda. Coincidentally, the top Ducati qualifier on that day was our front row starter this afternoon, none other than Jack Miller.
Ducati's home to taking a victory in this sprint. You feel they really hinge on the shoulders of the Gracini pair, Alex Marquez and Fermin Aldeguer. Home to Australia though, on the shoulders of Jack Miller. How's he feeling and what are his chances? More points for Jack.
What a day so far for Jack, onto the front row, giving himself a great chance. What's possible today?
What you were fast for the first row, it's a great chance. Overall, it was a really great weekend, not only for Jack, also all the Yamaha did a good job, so it means that this track is good for us, good layout for our bike. But the race is the race, it's also really difficult. We know our pace is not really good. We need to improve a lot. Today is a good point to make some data, to get some information, be ready for tomorrow. I think if we are able to make a really good race, top 5 is a great result.
Thanks, Dino. Good luck.
Top 5, a great result, and as far as Jack Miller is concerned, Jack and the Aussie fans will be hoping for a lot more. Certainly hoping and expecting a lot more in this morning's GT session with Fabio Antonio, who looked great big, didn't he, on that Friday afternoon, the Italian, his first MotoGP podium here a couple of years ago, 3rd quickest on Friday, 2nd fastest this morning. So the Tissot stuck down his 10th place in that 4th row. He was pretty frustrated, pretty disappointed to miss out in those time attacks.
8th time this season in 19 Grand Prix that he qualified off the front 3 rows of the grid, and for a bike as good as the one he's got, even if it has been questioned sometimes this year, that GP25 this year should be starting a little higher up the grid than that. But Drew and Prix ultimately have the superior pace in this Tissot sprint. Marco Bezzecchi goes to the front row of the grid with Ralph Fernandez right behind on row 2. Technical chief Fabiano Sterlachini now talking to Jack.
Yeah, Fabiano, we're really in a great position here. We just heard from Davide Bricchio, who said Raul's got a great chance, but it's obvious Marco a huge favourite for this one. Just how important is the start though? After the 2 mistakes that were made in Mandalika, I imagine that's going to be on his mind.
Yeah, we saw that they are really important. Yes, for sure we hope that after the disappointed event that we had, we try to fix something in terms of riding, in terms also the technique of the bike, in terms of tuning, and hopefully that we can do our normal start as we did in the previous races, where basically we maintain the position.
Knowing what's to come tomorrow, is there extra pressure on this one to maximise the points?
Not really, because sometimes if you maximize the pressure, then you can, let me say, be over ambitious and make some mistakes. So the focus is to try to obtain the maximum that we can without mistakes. That is the target.
Thanks, Fabiano. Good luck.
Thank you.
Fabiano Sterlachini, Marco Bezzecchi started the sprint in Misano, put him his home crowd from the front row of the grid. He won the sprint. The last time out, MellanaGP, Marco Bezzecchi started on the front row of the grid. He won the sprint after all the start dramas, fighting his way through, back from 8th place. 2 then of the last 3 sprints have gone the way of the factory and brilliant start. Ruled out Japan, of course, when he got a clash with his teammate Roy Marquis in turn 1. Well, so far, Sprint Saturday has been nothing but a rip-roaring success for Yamaha, with 2 bikes on the front row of the grid for the first time in 4.5 years. Led by Fabio Quattararo from pole position. Let's get the thoughts of this one. My Americani from Jack.
Mayo, excellent job once again by Fabio this morning. This feels different to those previous pole positions where I think we knew that the races would be more of a challenge. He's a real contender today. How big of an opportunity is this?
Yeah, the opportunity is big. As always, it will be very important to have a good start. I do believe that the podium is feasible if circumstances will be normal. What he has been able to do this morning, I think, has been something incredible because since we arrived, we couldn't expect. We couldn't expect to be competitive as we show, but also was impossible to think about the pole position. And yeah, he has been able to put together a fantastic luck. And now let's see what he will show us in a few minutes. Good luck. Thank you.
Yeah, let's find out what those lines score over these 13 laps of Phillip Island from that 5th pole position of this year for Fabio Quattararo. Luca Marini then, well, he leads the Honda charge, probably back at the 3rd row, 9th place. It's been a pretty dramatic weekend so far for the factory Honda squad. Very high profile, spectacular engine flow, with over 350 kilometres an hour for both Joan Mir and Marini so far here this weekend. Pedro Acosta, when you look at still photos, still images of Luca Marini's RT213, the expiring in about 350 clicks down the Garda Straight, somehow, and thankfully taking a evasive accident late last second with Pedro Acosta. Lightning reflexes, he'd been blind as well by all the smoke coming out of the exhaust of Marini's stricken Honda. No drama for Acosta then, 5th place on the grid. Keen to see how Acosta fires away from the grid. You would know that the KTM RC16 is an absolute missile off the line. It's an absolute rocket ship. You'll be surprised to see Acosta immediately in the victory on Thursday. What about the thoughts of Swiss crew chief Paul Trabat? Well, he's with Jack.
Yeah, he is indeed, and I think you're absolutely right, Bertie. If Pedro can get this KTM rocket fired off the line and into a strong position early on, we saw him MellanaGP, he's a tough man to get past.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, he's got that skill that makes it very, very difficult to pass him. So he's improving every week as a rider. You know, there was something else he just added to his portemonnee, if you like. You know, to understand everything. And you know, the big question here will be the front tyre, how it works. We haven't spent enough time on that really to really say that it's we need it. This is clear, and we just have to understand this, how the grip balance changes between front and rear. But other than that, then let's go race.
Good luck.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Paul Trabat, and very close to home, of course, is the Kiwi in this part of the world. 7 sprint podiums so far in his career for Pedro Acosta. Fabio Quattararo from pole position, never had a sprint victory. Jack Miller from 3rd, never had a sprint victory. Ralph Fernandez and Pedro Acosta on that 2nd row of the grid, also without a sprint victory. Is today the day that they potentially break their duck? Fabio Quattararo just getting himself focused and in the zone. See off into the distance, beautiful Bass Strait, surface paradise around this part of Australia. Hofsberger, what more can you say about Felicio, the number 44, standing for the inch of Maverick Vinales, 8th on the grid for Polispargo. Top gate Hemi was yesterday's best qualifying since Argentina turned master the Rio Honda in the early part of 2022. Much of a shopping trip with his wife to New York. Maybe he should go empty his wallet a little bit more often.
Expected to be walking around Macy's this weekend or down Times Square in the he's riding around one of the great Grand Prix venues on the calendar, Phillip Island, 8th on the grid. Of course, when we saw him last back in Hungary, he did end up finishing in the top 10 just outside the points of the sprint and 8th in the Grand Prix, showing that he has still got plenty to offer. He looks relaxed, he looks ready to go. What is going through the mind of Jack Miller right now? The first multi, as you mentioned, since Casey Stoner to put it on the front row of the grid in Australia. Is he thinking of a top 5 or is he thinking of a lot more?
With only 2 rounds so far this season where Miller on the Prix Yamaha scored points in both the sprint and the Grand Prix. Factory and Silverstone 8 points across the last 6 rounds. It's been a bit of a tough time for Miller since we came back from the summer break. The good times though, he thinks of rolling back at Yamaha with the imminent arrival of the V4 engine package. Jack, of course, under contract for 2026. When I spoke to the pre-run press conference on Thursday, he said the best of Miller is still to come. Feels like his best years are ahead of him. Front row of the grid then here for this Australian Grand Prix sprint. 30 laps of high-octane drama coming your way here at one of the fastest and most spectacular tracks on the calendar. Jack Miller, his first front row start since Japan in 2023. First time he's in the top 3 on a Yamaha. Marco Bezzecchi goes from the middle of the front row in second, but it's Fabio Quartararo with an all-time lap record. The Frenchman flying in Q2 this morning. He's on pole in ours.
Stop. Can't stop, won't stop.
Bezzecchi, of course, a quick reminder, following tomorrow's Australian Grand Prix, have a double long lap penalty third. Second row featuring Ralph Namis, Pedro Acosta and Alex Marquez. Alex Marquez was fourth twice in that dramatic Q2 session this morning. No Ducati on the front row of the grid since the European Grand Prix in 2020. No Ducati in the top 5 on the grid with their best start, Alex Marquez in 6th place. Are we today, for the very first time, going to have a sprint finish without a Ducati in the medal position? That has never happened before. In all of our previous 7 sprints, Ducati have picked up at least one name. Down we go, then it's tight for the team Thursday. This should be a very good early overtaking hotspot. Fancy being aggressive as these riders do in their DNA, of course. Casey Stoner, he was the master of qualifying and was the undefeated between 2007 and 2012 on the combination of Ducati and Honda. It's always the case that, well, who's going to finish second in the Australian Grand Prix when Casey was at his prime and at his best around this magnificent circuit. Next time this year, then Fabio Quartararo comes to pole position. Marco Bezzecchi making sure that the front side man league that everything is full working order after his rush with nature at the left the line for the warm-up lap. And now we're about to get the green flag clearing at the back and on the glorious clear blue skies here in Phillip Island. We're about to get underway in the 19th sprint of 2020. Right down to we're racing in the sprint here in Phillip. A great start for competition by Watchalong, but even better on the other Yamaha is Jack Miller. But look at Alex Marquez, what a start by the number 72. He's come from 6th place after getting on the whole tarmac open up for Alex, who leads here. Val Fernandez is in the 2nd place, trying to go around the outside. Miller tops down as back second. They go through the southern loop for the first time. Quattararo from pole back in 5th.
Quattararo got too much wind. He was trying to lead the grid, just got all bogged down and lost momentum on the Redanzo, and he's also going to lose the place to Pedro Acosta. So it is Raul Fernandez who leads us into Miller corner for the first time, with Jack Miller back in 4th.
Second row to start, the late start wasn't there, and Alex goes in hard, goes in wide on the way to Miller corner. So that allows Bezzecchi up into 2nd place. Raul Fernandez and Alex Marquez started the sprint 4th and 6th respectively. They both led it.
Raul Fernandez is pulling out a bit of an early advantage here. 4 tenths already over Marco Bezzecchi, who's 62nd. Acosta didn't get the flight start we expected from him. He's actually lost the flight.
Yeah, Albert also pulling picked up by Gian Antonio, trying to fly back through now on the further back. You see those two as that's getting work on the inside of Albier down into turn 10. Third time it's not been the start of Albier. The man the lead Grand Prix winner was once a year in Australia.
Costa was trying to attack Quattararo too into turn 10, but the two Brilliants have got a bit of a jump on the rest of the field here. Alex Marquez unable to go with them at this stage. We're on board with Marco Bezzecchi, who's going to crank it up to around 350 kilometres an hour down this main straight. Bezzecchi leads, and Miller's now trying to attack Alex Marquez.
Yeah, and Costa does get through the 37 km on the inside of Quattararo. Some slip strip coming into play there this morning in Q2. There was a massive gulf between the KTM and Fabio Quattararo's factory Yamaha down the Garden Straight, 15 kilometres an hour. Quattararo giving up.
Crash in the background coming into turn 2. Brad Binder is dropping down behind him. He's got a penalty to take tomorrow, and he's crashed at the southern loop on lap 2.
Well, on Friday afternoon it was the 21-2 as Costa's getting really busy here early on. He sent on the inside of Miller going into the Miller corner. It's on a little wide line there going through that turn 4. Miller darting back to the inside line. Good battle that between Miller and the Costa. Brad Binder's had a shocking Saturday here in Phillip Island. Walking Johan Zarco at the end of Q1 going to get him a 3-place penalty tomorrow, and he's down now early in this sprint.
Costa once again, that'll be bold on the inside of Lucy Heights on Jack Miller, who ain't going to be pushed around anywhere, not least at his home Grand Prix. Costa continues to blaze clear at the front. Once again, Acosta favours that tighter inside line, but the door shut in his face by Miller.
Making no significant early progress with two Italians, Marini and Bagnaia. They're stuck at the moment outside of point scoring places in 10th and 11th respectively. That's Bagnaia has been picked off by Zarco and Mancini late on this lap 2 of 13. So Raul Fernandez versus Bezzecchi, roles reversed compared to Friday afternoon, where Bez led Raul in the front 1-2. It's Raul Fernandez who's getting on with it here in the early part of the sprint. A 1:27.382. Fernandez quickest rider on circuit as we start lap 3 of 13.
The rider with the early pace, certainly the early aggression is for sure. Acosta on the 37 in 6th place. Surely he's going to be launching another raid on the inside of Miller into Jack Miller's own corner that is named after him. Turn 4 as they now close up on Alex Marquez. Alex Marquez is already over a second back of the leader.
He's been ultra aggressive to start this sprint. He started down in 20th place, and a shocking weekend so far for the Beast. But Beast mode has been engaged. They are already up into 13. He's picked up 7 places early on then in this sprint.
Bagnaia just lost another place. Miguel Oliveira is turning into another sprint shocker for Paco Bagnaia. There's quite a catalogue of those already through 2025. He's not going to be scoring any points today.
Not a lot of leading, not a lot of front running in MotoGP, has he, Raul Fernandez? Catch lines back to the sprint in Catalonia last year, one of the few occasions where he has been at the front against the very best in the world, but at the moment he's looking very, very confident. In fact, he's just eking out his advantage here over Marco Bezzecchi. He was as high as half a second, a little bit more as they came into second and 3 on this lap 3 of 13. Now we go through the real tight finishing turn 12, highest tire temperature of the season as they sweep through that long radius left-hander. They're going to fire up to 350 kilometres an hour now. It's Gian Antonio looking to pick up 2-3 behind Thomas Spargo. This is a battle for 7 on the road.
This is where Gian Antonio takes the price heavily for his whole qualifying. He's probably got the pace to be up with the Aprilians at the front end of the field on that 49 bike, but he's stuck in a lot of traffic. At the moment, only scoring 2 World Championship points back there in 8th place.
Back-to-back fastest laps of the sprint for number 25 Fernandez at 1:27. really Marco Bezzecchi is offering anything in terms of resistance to these fellow brilliant. Based on the 127.3, the gap is just under half a second. Alex Marquez under massive pressure as we go through Siberia for the fourth time here. Alex Marquez followed by Pedro Acosta and Fabio Quartararo, who are ganging up here.
Yeah, Alex Marquez was the only rider in the top 9 on that lap, but he did not set a personal best. Miller was a quarter of a second quicker. Miller sticking a sprint podium on home soil, but he's got to attack Alex Marquez while also worrying about defending from Pedro Acosta right behind him.
Max Sprint 2023 to the Grand Prix classified Miller. Hoping for a sprint medal, one of only two sprint top 3s that Miller has had. Checking out into the distance, long gone on the two brilliant. It was dominant here on Friday. Bezzecchi 1.5 seconds clear of Alex Marquez in third place. Alex got it all on here, only to defend against Miller and Acosta. Bezzecchi has now found his rhythm. He's got into his groove. 127.1 and 3.4 is now the fastest lap of the sprint. Miller has got through, but with that extra slipstream looking into the corner, he ran in a little bit wide. Alex then back up into P3.
Quartararo just a little bit detached at the back of this trio, running in 6th place. He's got Colin Fargo around about a second back in 7th. He's still holding Gian Antonio back. They're still battling for 7th and 8th place. It's an all-Honda battle for the final point at the moment. Marini versus Mir.
Bezzecchi now is really starting to close in on that rear tyre of Fernandez. The two are running right here in this qualified and sprint. They just move out of your picture there, the two of them going through turn 6 into Siberia right here. Late on in last year's sprint when Acosta had a real vision off the high side, a shoulder injury forced him to miss the Australian Grand Prix. At the front then, Fernandez 3/10 clear of Bezzecchi. Just after this battle for the final place on the podium, here's still the pole starter Quartararo, moving to the high 127s, but nothing in the moment. Miller, this is lovely. That's the classic first gear for one pass down the hill into turn 10 for Alex Marquez. Nothing Alex can do about that. Superb that by Miller, and he's now back up into that top 3.
But he's going to be exposed now with a Ducati and a KTM right behind him coming on to the main straight. The two factory Ducatis, by the way, are now last and second last. Bagnaia 20th, Tiro 21st. The less said about them now, the better. All four then with Acosta are looking at the back of Alex Marquez. Are they both going to come through on Jack Miller? Certainly Alex Marquez is.
What's Bagnaia doing? What on earth is going on? That last time he was a 130.4. He was the slowest rider on the circuit, slower than even that. And test driving Mercedes Hero, with the greatest respect to Mercedes Hero. He's now in the 131. It's 5 laps into this sprint. Bagnaia is 15 seconds away from the lead. But Ralph Fernandez at the front of the sprint is just a 127.387. Pecco Bagnaia on 130.7.
What's coming on? Miserable existence out there this afternoon for Pecco Bagnaia, another sprint shocker. He will have no say to do with this sprint. It's going to be in a brilliant conversation, isn't it, between Ralph Fernandez and Marco Bezzecchi. Bezzecchi has more than denying a young Spaniard a maiden sprint win. He did that to Fermin Aldeguer in Indonesia last time out. Is he going to deal out some similar punishment to Ralph Fernandez today?
Massive shout out to Matthew briefly took 11th place from Aldeguer. Aldeguer has just snatched that place back. Oh, Bezzecchi goes charging it on down the hill into turn 10. It was almost disaster there. Friendly fire between the two are brilliant. Now then, is that gifting here Ralph Fernandez just the breathing space that he needs? Down the hill they were going, attacking hard the front end into that turn 10. The first gear right-hander, a big mistake there then for Marco Bezzecchi.
Costing around a second, I think that has. We'll see if they come across the line now, and once again, Alex Marquez, Miller and Acosta. Acosta might take a pair of them here. He did cost Bezzecchi a second. He's now 1.1 behind. Acosta takes 2 into 1, and he's now up into the podium position.
Acosta is already on top of the fastest motorcycle in Grand Prix history. He doesn't really need the aid of a 2-wide slipstream down the garden straight. That's exactly what he got, and he used it to the max, didn't he? So now Acosta then up into the bronze medal position. Bezzecchi just going to try and regroup here. A 127.5 from Fernandez to 128.4 after that big mistake by Bez down the hill into turn 10. Magnaia's pace at the moment just yo-yoing off the scale. He now all of a sudden has gone from 131 back into the high 129.
Well, this is the Eagle at the start, so he nearly hit Marco Bezzecchi in the face. You see some feathers there on the cables at the front of that bike. Part of it is still stuck in the front aero, so that is not exactly making that Aprilia any quicker.
Yeah, additional weeks he did not want. And this is now the mistake down into that turn 10. He's back shooting down into first gear. We saw there. Maverick Vignales in an epic late fight with Marc Marquez, crashed the factory Yamaha a few years ago.
Coming straight back out Ralph Fernandez here, so Ralph Fernandez for Prix might be a rather brief one already on this lap. Bez has taken half a second out of Ralph Fernandez, who's demonstrating to me, even with a straight seagull locked in his front aero on full on Aprilia, in clear air, Bezzecchi's just got a 1:27.122, the fastest lap of the sprint, and he has cut Ralph Fernandez lead in half.
Coming back from the second back, it will be a feather in his cap as well as a feather on the side of his factory Aprilia. Pecco Bagnaia at the moment is stuck behind Untitled Chapter, and only Michele Vero is currently behind the double MotoGP World Champion. Once again now is back in the 130, 20 seconds now behind Ralph Fernandez. I mean, there's going to be some serious questions that are going to have to start coming away, aren't they? Pecco Bagnaia right now, what on earth is going on with the 63? It feels like we've been saying that a few times in the second half of 2025. It is still Fernandez versus Bezzecchi so far in this sprint. 8.5 laps through it, Ralph Fernandez has not seen anybody's rear tyre since the first 2 or 3 corners, has he?
You just see it come to the shot. Unfortunately, the Porsche Seagull still in the front of Marco Bezzecchi's Aprilia, so he turns to grapple with the bike, and someone can't be handling all that well, but he's still doing fast the sprint with it. But Ralph Fernandez, who did come very close to winning the sprint in Barcelona last year, crashed out of the lead. We caught from a couple of weeks on with first ever sprint podium. Can he go on better and turn a sprint podium into a sprint win today?
Bezzecchi leads that Seagull around sort of 60 kilometres an hour as he leads the grid. We have no rider to hit the Seagulls at this point, certainly over 250 kilometres an hour, which is a pretty unpleasant experience for single and rider, of course. Fernandez are now tipping into the third corner. Here comes Bezzecchi closing in as they flick it left now through the southern loop on the early part of lap 9 of 13. The Gian Antonio now has just picked off the pole starter Quartararo. So Quartararo's victory hopes, well, they never really materialised after a rather poor start from that split pole position of the season. The Gian Antonio then now up into
Oh, nearly went into the back of him again there. Once again, Bez going in hot. This time, though, he is able to bring it back round to a rather late apex. Ralph Fernandez is not exactly going slowly here, even though Bez called him quickly. Fernandez is still doing mid-27s, which is way faster than anyone else on the racetrack, not named Marco Bezzecchi. And of course, Bez on a bike, he'll know he's got the same strengths, same weaknesses as Ralph Fernandez on the same Aprilia.
You are trying to work out a way to defeat Marco Bezzecchi as far as Australian Grand Prix. It might be a place for you. He has to serve the 2 long laps, which are going to cost him at least, aren't they, 4 seconds. This time around there is no big mistake on the braking zone down into the first gear, turn 10. He's just got to be patient here, hasn't he, Bez? It doesn't look like late on in this 13-lap sprint he's got the superior speed. Fair play to Fernandez, though. He really is toughening it out right now for Trackhouse on course for back-to-back sprint podiums. And it doesn't look like, does it, for the very first time in the sprint era, we're going to have a podium that does not feature a Ducati, because Alex Marquez is half a second at the moment behind Pedro Acosta in third. Here comes Ben into the southern loop we go on that change of direction on the flip-flop. This looked like it was a matter of time. This looked like it was a move that was coming. Bez makes it at turn 2 on lap 10.
And does Ralph Fernandez have any way of fighting back at that one? Look at the gap already. Bez has pulled out as they go through the Spoda corner, already a quarter of a second clear. And Ralph Fernandez, surely the team will be making him aware that he's got 3.5 seconds and empty time behind him. Back to Pedro Acosta. So it's a very safe second place here if Ralph Fernandez is prepared to settle for it.
One of the big battles that's been raging throughout this sprint. It was an unlikely one as well, given the fact that they started 13th place apart on the grid in between Aldeguer and Bastianini. Those two have just put in their PB laps in this sprint. Sadly for Meriden, it's outside of these point scoring places right now. The beast P11.
Gian Antonio really coming at this podium group quickly. He's doing 27.8. We know he's got the pace. He just didn't have the qualifying position. Of course, comes up behind Bolsonaro early on. This is Fabio Gian Antonio.